Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Chee-Tash. My name is Chris, and today we're going to be going over Chapter 1, Part 6 of 1984. If you guys remember last time in Part 5, we talked about Winston at his work, at his job, in the canteen, in the lunchroom or the cafeteria, if you will. And we met a couple cast of characters. We met Syme, who again is not really a friend of Winston, just somebody that he knows that is currently working on the 11th edition of the Newspeak Dictionary. We finally got to see Tom Parsons in the flesh, and we got to know him a little bit. There was a quacking man. There was a girl that was staring at Winston, that dark-haired girl that worked in the fiction department. I think that was first introduced in Part 1. So a lot of interesting things in Part 5. Part 6, very short section of Chapter 1. And we're going to dive deeper into just lifestyle and relationships in Oceania. Because this part starts off with Winston writing in his diary. And you don't really know it yet. In fact, I think we have a discussion question on this. You don't really know what he's writing about just from that first diary entry that it says right there on page 65. So it says it was 3 years ago. It was on a dark evening. He finds a woman standing in the doorway. She's got a heavily painted face. There's nobody else in the street. No telescreens. She says $2. And immediately he starts to wince at this. And what you find out going through this section, part 6, is that Winston is essentially writing about a sexual encounter that he's about to have with a prostitute, right? Because it says in his diary entry, there's nobody else on the street, no telescreens. She said $2. So he's paying for a woman that's offering up sex for money. That's what he's writing about. Go take a look at it. It happened relatively recently, kind of not too long ago, but not too recently, 3 years ago. It was near this big railway station. He notices that her face was painted like a mask, and he actually does say that women of the party never painted their faces. So it's kind of interesting, and that's going to come into play later, I think, why her face was painted like that. Again, it was $2 to have sex with this woman. And, well, I write it right there. She ends up being very old, 50. So maybe her painting her face is kind of to mask her age. And you can kind of tell that Winston is a little bit disgusted by this. Because he's writing it down and he's wincing, almost like in pain. I can't believe I did this. I can't believe I did this with this hoe. He's just very, very disgusted by it. It says that he's trying to squeeze out the vision that kept recurring. He has a temptation to shout out a string of filthy words. He wants to bang his head against the wall. So it really seems like he's kind of pissed at himself for doing this. And why does he do it? Well, I mean, I guess a man has his needs, right? And it's interesting, though, to note that prostitution is banned in Oceania, right? But it's not really outright, they're going to punish you and kill you for it. Because in some ways, he does say that the party allows for it, on the down low, just keep it where we can't see it, kind of. Right? So it's weird that the relationship between Oceania and sexual relationships it's weird. It's like they don't want you to do it, but they kind of are saying, hey, go ahead, just as long as, it's under the radar. That might come up a little bit later. Right now, later. Like we said, consorting with prostitutes was forbidden. But again, the party sort of encourages it as and this is from page 67, as an outlet for instincts which could not be altogether suppressed. So what I kind of think is that, think about all that energy that you have. And if you guys have read Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich. Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich. He talks about being able to transmute sexual energy. And basically taking the energy that you get from being, having like that high libido, I guess, and putting it towards something that's constructive towards like a career, a business, making money, etc. All right, it's been a while since I've read Napoleon Hill, but I believe this was in Think and Grow Rich. So think about that from the perspective of Oceania, where, hey, we're going to forbid prostitution, but in a way, the people, the proles, still need an outlet to let go of all this energy. Because if they go around with all this pent-up sexual energy, then that energy maybe might towards speaking out against Big Brother, having the balls to have a revolution. Just spitballing here, but that's kind of how I see the party, how the party sees sexual relations in Oceania. They need to ban it, and we're going to explain why they want to ban it, but they also don't want that energy going to something that'll be negative towards Big Brother. So the goal of the party that Winston talks about here is to remove all pleasure from the sexual act. So what do they try to do? They try to make intercourse look disgusting and vile, right? Like you don't want to do it. Eroticism was the enemy, and they want to kill the sex instinct. They want you to think about, and I think he says that he wants you to think about, when you think about sex, you think about having like an enema done, like something really, really unpleasant. Looked on a slightly disgusting minor operation like having an enema. Right? So they really don't want you to think pleasant thoughts in regards to this. Now, why is that? The party also wants to prevent men and women from forming loyalties. And hang on, we're going to answer that question in a second. But there's also this anti-sex league, which has been discussed before. I think in part 1, the dark-haired girl was a part of the anti-sex league. So it's a group that advocates for complete celibacy and even goes so far as artificially inseminating children. So I think artificial insemination is like, so you don't have intercourse, you literally have somebody put the gametes together, like inside of you, like the sexual cells inside of you, like sperm and egg, and it's like put inside of you, basically. So they have this anti-sex league. The party doesn't want men and women to form loyalties to each other. They don't really want you to have a sexual relationship. They don't want you to have intimacy. No eroticism. You can't really love your wife. And I think it has something to do with just that. They want you to have the only relationship you have. Big Brother is going to be your father. Big Brother is going to be your best friend. You're not going to need sexual relationships. Big Brother is all you need. Not that you'd want to have sex with Big Brother, but they're trying to control reproduction in kids. They only want certain people having kids. And when you do have kids, it's only for the good of the party. So this leads us to a new character that we are introduced to, and it's Katharine, who is Winston's wife. So I remember earlier episode like 1 or 2, I was talking about how Winston doesn't really have any family. He's never married, doesn't have kids. Well, we found out, yes, he had a mother and father and a sister. And now we find out that he's married, and they're not married anymore. Or rather, he might still be married, but they're not together anymore. She might still be alive. It's been 11 years since they were together. And when they were together, they weren't even together for that long. It was only 15 months. And the reason they broke up was because they couldn't have any children. Now, the party wants you to revile sex. They don't want you having sex all the time. They don't want you to look at your partner as somebody that you love. But they do encourage baby making to make more babies for the party. All right. Before we get there, really quick, Katherine, this is kind of interesting. Her physical description, she seems attractive. Fair hair, tall, very straight. Seems thin. I don't know. I guess she'd be a good-looking girl. But then the intangibles, the personality, that's where it kind of loses Winston. He says she was the most stupid, vulgar, empty mind that he had ever encountered. Everything she spoke was a slogan for the party, and he nicknamed her the human soundtrack. Where have we kind of caught a glimpse of this description before? But the last part that we read, part 5, in the canteen, doesn't this human soundtrack kind of describe the quacking man? Where it's just slogan after slogan and positivity on the party. It's not even talking. It's just like a broken record, on and on and on and on and on. And Winston kind of lets us into his life saying, that's kind of what Katherine was like. Now, he stuck around for a while because they were having regular sex. But it's not because of any sort of intimacy, because he describes the sex as very lackluster. She's not participating in it. It's almost like she's disgusted by it. She's trying to like push him away almost. But they're doing it like quite a lot. And she makes it a point. Katherine makes it a point to Winston, like, hey, we need to do this today. I mean, how great does that sound? That if your significant other is just on top of it like that, no, we have to do this today. Okay, if you're pulling my arm about it, I guess. Winston actually, it's funny because Winston wanted to remain celibate, but Katherine wants to have sex in order to have a baby. And she describes it as being a duty to the party to have a baby. 2 names he said that she had for sex. It was making a baby, and the other was our duty to the party. So it's not out of intimacy. It's to have a baby for the party, for Big Brother, to make more spies, those little beggars, the Parsons kids, more of those people for the party so they can join the spies and wreak havoc on parents and other people for not doing seemingly anything but wearing the wrong shoes like we learned about in part 5. And the Parsons kid turns him in for just simply wearing the wrong shoes. So we have this weird thing with sex in Oceania. It's really weird, right? They're not encouraging it. They want you to hate it. And I don't think they just want anybody to have a baby. But the people they do want to have babies, they want you to have sex, but not out of intimacy. No. They don't want you forming a loyalty between a man and a woman. No, we can't have that. I think it's all to control the population and make them focus on what is the most important thing in their life. Think about it. you loved your partner, you loved your husband or wife, and you guys had a healthy relationship, and you loved each other, and you guys were intimate, where that energy detracts from what you would give Big Brother. Yeah, we can't have that. We can't have that. I find it interesting, too, that the differences between women of the party and women of the night, the proles. Actually, and I do have questions on this here, I think. Compare and contrast the women of the party with the women in the red light district. Women, the prostitution, they wore masks, they wore scents. Women of the party, they don't do that. And Winston actually says when he catches a whiff of the scent of that prostitute, he feels like the tension in the air. It almost gets him aroused. But women of the party don't do that. It kind of reminds me of the bell curve, which we do have some episodes on if you guys want to watch those. Hell of a book. He does talk about how high IQ people tend to have less kids than lower IQ people. So it's essentially like they're creating this small upper class that rules over the larger class where, people of the party, they're not having sex a lot. So maybe they're not having as many kids compared to the proles. But we want the proles to have sex, but we also want to make it forbidden. But we need them to have kids because we need more of them. We need more of the working class to do our dirty work for us. I don't know. These are just thoughts, right? Winston is disgusted by what he did. And he continues on in his diary entry, and it's almost like he can't even finish. Like towards the end of part 6, he's like, gosh, he had written it down at last, but it made no difference. The therapy had not worked. The urge to shout filthy words at the top of his voice was as strong as ever. He's pissed he did this. He's disgusted by it. Yeah. So he's using the diary as, like a form of therapy to write down his thoughts. And that's kind of ties into that first discussion question there. So we got Winston is disgusted when writing down his memory of the prostitute. Why do you think that is? Why does he keep writing? Does he think it's going to help? Second one here, why do you think the party has a goal of getting people to revile sex? We've kind of touched on this. And then compare and contrast the women of the party with the women in the red light district of Oceania. And then extrapolate. What other differences do you think there are between women of the party and the proles, women in the proles, in the proletariat? And that's going to wrap it up. This was a short part. Part 6 was very short. We'll do part 7 next week. That's a little bit longer. I think that's like 15 pages. Guys, thank you very much for listening this far. I really appreciate it. We hit 100 subscribers. I should do another video on that just to thank you guys. 100 subscribers on YouTube. That is a huge, huge achievement. Thank you guys so much. And we're on to bigger and better things. We'll never stop. We'll never stop. And the discussion questions can be found at the blog, Chee-Tash.ghost.io. It'll be in the description of the video. And guys, again, thank you so much for listening. My name is Chris. This has been Chee-Tash. I'll see you guys next week. Part 7 coming. Take care.